Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Debbie Walsh. I'm the director of the Center for American Women and Politics at the Eagleton Institute of Politics here at Rutgers University, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. We are so pleased that so many of you are joining us for this program, and perhaps it's because you heard from one of our many event co-sponsors, and you can find their names listed in your program, and I'd like to thank each of them for their participation. As many of you know, tonight's program was made possible by the generous support of the New Jersey State Legislature for the Senator Wynona Lipman Chair in Women's Political Leadership. The chair honors the first Black woman in the Senate who represented Essex County for 27 years in the New Jersey legislature. Over those years, she became the strongest and most consistent voice in the legislature for women and people of color. She was the leading advocate for children, families, low-income people, small businesses, and people with AIDS. She tackled issues including employment discrimination, marriage law, child support, sexual assault, domestic violence, and the rights of children. Senator Lipman taught at Essex County College, and she was a great supporter of New Jersey's community colleges. For many of her years in the Senate, she was the only woman there, always speaking up for those with the least access to the political process, always alert to the political implications of race and gender. And I encourage you to learn more about this political pioneer by reading her bio that's on our website. And through the legislature's continuing support for the Lipman Chair, we have been able to bring an extraordinary roster of distinguished women to Rutgers to inspire us, and I'm happy to tell you that tonight is no exception. I'm just going to take a minute to do a little bit of logistics for how we're going to run the Q&A portion of the program. On your seats, you should have found an index card, and in order to pose as many questions as possible to the senator, we're going to be taking questions from the audience via those cards, and we'll try to consolidate questions that have the same theme. You can submit questions at any time during the lecture by passing them to the aisle, and you can see Siksha over there, Jean back there, a couple of our other, Kai is around too. People will be picking up the cards, and if you don't have a card, let us know, we'll get you one. And now to the reason that you all are all here tonight. So when we select someone to deliver the Lipman Lecture, we look for parallels or connections with Senator Lipman, a logic that suggests a person would be a good fit for this role. It's not hard to make those links this year. Like Senator Lipman, Senator Laphonza Butler has spent her career championing fairness and justice. She has worn many hats during her career, but what has been the unifying theme is her commitment to ensuring that folks who often have no voice at the tables where decisions are being made are actually heard. For nearly 2 decades, she was an organizer and leader in the labor movement. At just 30 years old, Senator Butler was elected president of California's largest home care and nursing home workers union, SEIU Local 2015. There, she helped orchestrate the raising of the state's minimum wage to $15 an hour and secure paid sick days for the state's home care workers. Laphonza Butler was sworn into the U.S. Senate on October 1st, 2023, after being appointed by California Governor Gavin Newsom in October of last year to fill the seat left vacant by the death of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Immediately prior to her appointment, Senator Butler was the president of Emily's List, which is dedicated to electing pro-choice Democratic women to office. During her tenure, Emily's List recruited and supported over 600 women to run for office, and I am personally grateful to Senator Butler for the key role that she played in electing COP's good friend Holly Mitchell to the LA County Board of Supervisors. Another distinction that Senators Butler and Lipman share is that of being the only. As I mentioned earlier, Senator Lipman was the first Black woman to serve in the New Jersey State Senate, and for many of her years there, she was the only Black woman serving. Shockingly, in 2024, Senator Butler is the only Black woman serving in the United States Senate, and she is only the third Black woman to ever have served there. She is also the first openly LGBTQ Black person to serve in the United States Senate. Finally, Senator Butler lives by the advice given to her by her mother, and it is advice that mirrors the ethos of Senator Lipman: work hard, do your best, and never give up on a vision of fairness and justice. And so who better to be with us tonight to deliver the Senator Wynona Lipman Chair and to reflect on the power of Black women's leadership in politics. It is my honor and my pleasure to present Senator Laphonza Butler.
You have a big new presenter.
Thank you all so much for coming. I got to make sure that I'm not touching the right thing that I'm not supposed to touch. Camera person, I'm going to do the best I can. Thank you all so much for coming. It is, what day of the week is it? Wednesday? You all could be at Bible study. You could be doing 15 other things than being here, and so I'm grateful that you chose to be here. I know this is the first time that this lecture is being given in person since 2019, pre-pandemic, and so that you would offer me the opportunity to share with you for your first time being back in person is indeed a privilege. Here's the thing. I am a fairly direct, honest. I believe I only get so many lies in life. And so I want to approach this from a place of of authenticity. I could stand here and offer you a set of prepared remarks that my staff worked really hard on a few weeks ago when they asked me what did I think that I wanted to say. And I was sharing with Deborah that on the train this morning, I changed my mind. And so we're just going to have a conversation. Hopefully you will indulge and appreciate a little bit of just genuine, authentic engagement on the power of Black women's leadership in politics. I know that there is a treasure trove of talented leaders, public servants, servant leaders who have offered a set of remarks in years prior to me. So to share this honor with women like Valerie Jarrett, with women like Michelle Norris, to know that Shirley Chisholm was the first woman leader to offer remarks here in this context, just reminds me of how improbable me standing before you as only the third Black woman to serve in the United States Senate ever in the history of our country. We have elected well over 2,000 United States senators that have either been elected or appointed. 2003. I am number 2003. I am number 3, and I am number 12. There have only been 12 Black people ever to serve in the United States Senate. And so when I made the decision that I wasn't going to run for office, I offered for consideration the words of Muhammad Ali, one of our greatest fighters, celebrated as not only a boxing champion, but a civil rights leader and icon in so many ways, who said to us, don't count the days, make the days count. And in so many ways, my experience in the United States Senate has been an opportunity to, yes, make every day count, but in a different way, Kimberly, than I've ever thought before. make me aware of what my numbers are. Number 2003, number 12, and number 3. I don't know what that means in the context of history and how it will be written, but I think it means a lot to the work of the Center for American Women in Politics. I think it means a lot for the Women's Leadership Institute. I think it means a lot for the training programs that are run for women here on this campus and all the other campuses that I learned about today. I think it means a lot. It sets baseline in so many ways. I was walking down the street with Deborah this morning, and she said, one of the first conversations we had was about when I became president of Emily's List, was about the data. And I'm getting the sense that data means a lot to you. I was like, you're right on the nose there, Deborah. Because the data actually tells a story. And I want to appreciate your work, not just for the charts and the data, but for the space to tell a story. The unique space for Black women in politics in this country to tell their story right here as a part of honoring the work of Senator Wynona Lipman. I am a Southerner by birth. I'm from Mississippi. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I promise you I'm not going to keep you as long as I was raised to be in church. I will only be before you for a little while, but I wanted to try to capture some things that came to me on the train this morning and offer you for consideration both insight and experience, as well as the opportunity not just to consider, but to act. I was an organizer for 20 years. I am more organizer than I am senator. I would be doing my profession injustice if I didn't leave here without you thinking about what to do differently. And so as I was thinking about and reading and learning about the service of Senator Wynona Lipman, I feel like I literally think I watched every single available talk online by these incredible women who I think told you more than told you everything you knew and more than maybe some things that you didn't know about Senator Wynona Lipman. I won't try to tell you who she was. You know that better than I do. What I would like to offer, I think, is 3 points about her life and work as it relates to my own life and work. And hopefully we'll wrap it all up at the end. I was on a 7:45 train this morning. I was asked to talk about the power of Black women in leadership, Black women's leadership in politics, the power of Black women's leadership in politics. And I thank you for such a broad topic. It did. It gave me lots of leeway. And it gave me the ability to, I think about and reflect those moments of intersection that have, I think, been formulaic for me in my leadership now in the Senate. I think also insightful for me in terms of how I think about the key ingredients, if you will, to the recipe of Black women's leadership. I would like for us to think a little bit grounding ourselves in Senator Lipman because I think the broadness of the topic is a reflection of the broadness of her service. The power of Black women's leadership in politics. It gave room for her to not only tackle the most challenging issues, which we know she did, not only to give voice to those who government at that time had totally forgotten, which we know she did, but it also gave her the space, a broad space to be hopeful. She led from a place of expecting better. Everything that I read about her, she expected better for New Jersey's children. She expected better for those living with and dying from AIDS and HIV. She led from a place of the expectation of better, from this sense and essence of hope, and I dare say this demand of faith in what is possible. And as I think about like what I wanted to offer, as I thought about and prepared what I wanted to offer tonight, I wanted to sort of pick up on that point. There's a lot that I could say to you about the challenges of Black women's leadership in politics, but that wasn't the topic I was offered. I think that I was offered the topic of the power of Black women's leadership in politics, because innately in Black women, we embody the leadership, the sentiment, the demand of better. Yes. We hold on to and drive forward with the expectation of more, and we are grounded in our faith of the power of bringing others together. And so I know that there are questions that you have, and I'm more than happy to answer them about the challenges of being the only. But I want to pick up and offer for consideration and action the power, indeed the possibility of what it means for Black women's leadership in politics. And I offer 3 quick points. And I promise I am not the Southern Baptist preacher that you all know and expect, but because it's 3 quick points. 3 quick points. Hopefully, I can bring it together and we can all get out and live stream Bible study. The power of Black women's leadership in politics, broad title. For me, I really started to narrow in, Deborah, on 3 words: power, leadership, and politics. When I think about power as Black woman labor leader, young labor leader, in that having traveled the world on behalf of working families, starting my first campaign in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, winding my way up from between 21 and 29, winding up in Los Angeles, California, leading the largest union in the state of California. What I learned through that lesson was power is indeed fundamental. It is not secondary. It is not nice to have. But when you are asking a worker to put everything on the line, to choose to unite with the person that they might speak to on Tuesday, standing next to them, in the hopes of winning the wages and benefits that they deserve, that manifest the dignity that their families deserve. You are asking them to do a lot, but truly at its essence, what you are asking them to do is find collectively their power. And what I had to learn as I sort of went through this experience in the labor movement is that we sometimes don't have a shared definition of what that is. Um, and Lord, this is a Southern Baptist church. Lord, we are going to get some amens before this is over. And it might be the first time at the Lipman lecture, but we are going to make it happen. Look, to me, this notion and demand of power at its essence, I think is, and I have experienced, I believe, as needing to have that shared definition so that we can know when we have power and when we don't, so that we know how to use it while we have it, and so we can know how to pass it along when it's time. And Deborah, I'm gonna change your whole lecture series here, girl. And in those three, I think, really key moments of utilizing power, knowing when you have it, using it while you got it, and passing it when it's time, you have to have a common understanding of what it is so that you can clearly see what you have. I learned over the many years in the labor movement, almost 20 years in the labor movement, that I had 4 key elements of power. I had money. I think we all agree that that is essential way to demonstrate power. I started off with 145,000 workers. By the time I left as president, I had gotten up to 375,000 workers, the largest home care and nursing home workers union in the nation. And so I was convinced that I had the power of people, or people power. So money is one element. People is another element. I also could appreciate that I could influence many things and many people. Because I carried the voices and stories of those workers who allowed me to serve as their president, I could therefore influence people's decisions, people's considerations. And so I think that influence is another manifestation of power. But before I left, what I became increasingly clear of is that the fourth element that often can be missed, particularly in the 21st century as we head into the 22nd, is the power of data. And that data, Debbie, you and your team understand this probably more uniquely, and I was a little slow, so it took me a little longer to appreciate that the power of data is equal to, if not as influential as the power of influence. It is a tool of influence. It is the data of, there's no other reason that I can understand why Meta would collect so much of, or Google would collect, or Samsung, name the thing. Apple now asks us, do you want the app to track you on your phone? There is value in the data. And frankly, who has the data in a technology-driven world has the power. So if we can appreciate that money, people, influence, and data are key elements of power, I think that we can get to a place where we can objectively assess whether we have it, how we will use it, what is the most effective way to deploy the power that we have, and what it is that we need to pass on when it's time. In a transition, I've been through many in my career. Often we think that the transition period, it's nice. It's like everybody has a transition plan. But if they're transitioning you useless information, what really are they passing along? you can't quantify for me how the power that you had transitions to now a tangible tool that workers can continue to deploy no matter who's in the seat. You missed indeed an opportunity. And I think that more often than not, without the clarity of definition and measurement and objective engagement, we truly are passing from one generation to the next a big bowl of nothing. The second point I wanted to offer is that of leadership. Leadership, here's a big insightful point, a real aha that I came to recently. The most, I have to think about how to say this carefully because this will live on in perpetuity. One of the most honored titles that I will ever have is United States Senator from the state of California. It is deeply meaningful to 40 million people who call my state home. And it is one of it can be interpreted as one of the emptiest titles. And I think that what we should understand in the context of Senator Lipman specifically and Black women generally is that leadership is more than a title. And I think Senator Lipman sort of showed this and made this point consistently in her career. The evidence, the data is truly there to substantiate the claim that Senator Lipman was a leader before that anybody ever called her senator. A little girl from LaGrange, Georgia, living out her whole best life in Paris, France. Going from that little girl to a Fulbright scholar, choosing to love and marry someone who in 13 states found her marriage, their relationship illegal. I think she was leading people way before anybody gave her a title. And there, I think, is a commonality in Senator Lipman's leadership and, name the person. We can talk about Chief Justice Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, aspiring to be Senator Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, leading in her community well before anybody called her Chief Justice, making a difference in North Carolina, rural and urban, well before anybody ever imagined her senator. Let's go to somebody that we all know. Call a friend, whether we know her or not. That's what we do in Southern Baptist Church. My friend, Stacey Abrams. She's everybody's friend. Georgia has yet to call her Governor Abrams. And we all know, without her leadership of voter registration, without her leadership of organization building on the ground, without her leadership of empowering young women of color across her campaign, without her leadership of deploying new technology to engage young Black men who people said she would never win, without her leadership, we might not call her our friend, but we still have yet to call a Black woman in this country governor. And so I think that it's important to note as we as we consider this topic of the power of Black women, the hope, the possibility, the better that Black women's leadership in politics demands, we have to appreciate that for Black women, we lead without titles every day. We lead with clipboards. We lead with making lunch. We lead with making sure that the bus is on time. We lead with making sure that every child gets fed. I knew I was going to get one. We lead with, we lead like Senator Lipman. In our own way, it is in our DNA to lead by bringing everybody else. And so we have now a demand, if we're going to be successful, a demand for power, and hopefully a shared definition of what that means. We have a recognition that leadership can and will often look very different for us than it looks for others. The last point I want to make, and then I promise we will bring it home, is that I want you to appreciate that politics is more than elections. Deborah, you offered me the title, The Power of Black Women's Leadership in Politics. It struck me as key for us to understand, what is politics? What is that? It could be this thing for all of us that happens every 4 years. That's one way to think about it. It could be this thing for us that happens every day. Is another way to think about it. It could be only for the people whose name is on the bumper sticker, is one way to think about it. It could be that it is the person who writes the speeches, the person who collects the data, the person who does the research, the person who organizes the logistics and does the events, the person who does security. It could be that it is the person who understands the policy portfolio. It could be that it is the person who manages and is a master at social media. It could be that politics is more than just elections. And so when we appreciate that politics is more than elections, we understand that the leadership of Black women looks different than the leadership may look on the resume of others. And fundamentally, we know that we have to have the power to get the outcome that we want. I think what we have to understand, and try to drive for in our politics, our view of politics, is that the presence of Black women is not just about representation. The presence of Black women is about the dynamism of our leadership. It is about the voices and stories of those who we met in the church house for the PTA meeting. It is about the presence, I think, and values and dreams and fears and concerns of those that we met at the grocery store. It is the uniqueness of everything that we bring and that we embody, just like Senator Lipman. She didn't just think about who the media would want her to see as those living with and dying from AIDS. I think she, from what I read, she saw the reality of who that disease was impacting, and she got to work. And she brought all of the resources of the governor's office and the legislature. She organized her community. No community, here's a mirror, it's us too. She, I think, understood that it wasn't enough for her to have the title of senator, but she had to do the work of leader. And I think that is an interesting place for us, particularly as we sort of are here to honor such an icon of New Jersey, such a gift to this state. And those of us who are in places to be the only like me don't understand that I don't just stand on the shoulders of a Carol Moseley Braun. I don't just stand on the shoulders of Vice President Kamala Harris. I don't just stand on the shoulders of Dianne Feinstein. But there are the unsung heroes whose title never mattered, whose work was always demanding better, whose leadership was consistent, wasn't necessary always Ivy League, but whose presence was more than just about representation. And so you probably are sitting here saying to yourself, what does this have to do with Black women? That's a perfectly legitimate question. I wondered as I was reading about the greatness and the contributions of Senator Lipman, I said to myself, I was like, did they choose the right person to come and talk to about this? But when your name is Laphonza, it's probably only one of those. So they must have thought about the right person. But I said to you, I offered at the beginning, and I truly am coming to a close, that as we think about the elements of this topic, key elements, in my opinion, of this topic, the power of Black women's leadership in politics, key elements, in my opinion, words that stuck out, offerings for you to consider. I said that I wanted you to do more than just think, but to act. And so here's a set of questions that I think is important for us to examine when we get to a place of thinking about how do we act different because of the 20 minutes that you spent here. I don't even know how long it's been. When you think about Senator Wynona Lipman and the power of Black women's leadership in politics, I think there's a set of questions that we all have to consider when you consider your candidate contributions. Are you giving more or the same or less to the Black women who are running? Amen. I think that's a question that we have to think about. I think we have to think about when we're building our coalitions, are we giving space to organizations who are led by Black women more, less, or the same? I think we have to consider when we're in spaces of influence. When we're in spaces of influence, are we working to intentionally make sure that the voices of Black women are present and heard? I think we have to ask ourselves when we're building our campaigns, are we interviewing every position a Black woman for every position? Or are we just thinking about her as the person whose resume doesn't show what our expectation of leadership might be? I think we have the opportunity to think about when we're interviewing Black candidates for any position, on campaigns, to determine whether or not we're going to invest in them. When we're interviewing Black candidates for any position, are we examining just her resume, the words on her resume, or are we valuing the totality of her work? And so I one of the things that I sort of grounded this in the space of my own faith frame because one of the things that I have been in pursuit of is interrogating for myself whether I am asking the best question. And so as we leave today honoring the iconic superwoman service of Senator Wynona Lipman, as we sort of together thought to unpack what it means to have power, what does leadership look like? Can it be different than what I've experienced? And as we think truly about this notion of politics, are we yet equipped, able, courageous enough, like Senator Lipman, to ask ourselves the better question? Thank you all for inviting me to be here. I truly appreciate it. I'm not sure if it was as much a lecture as it was a series of thoughts for me, but I'm happy to turn it back over to you.
Now I'm turning it back to you because we're turning it to the audience and they have questions for you. But that was terrific, and it was a series of reflections, but they were exactly the kind of reflections we wanted. And I want to tell you how much I appreciated the connection to Senator Lipman and the connection between your life and her life and this work and the work that we all need to be doing to make sure that there is not just one Black woman serving in the United States Senate, that there are Black women serving as governor
Yep.
in this country,
Yeah.
that there are more women of color serving as governors in this country. So thank you for that, and thank you for all the work you've done to make that happen. So now, we have
Let's do it.
questions. You ready?
I am.
Okay.
I was with the class earlier today. They had great questions. So let's see if we have great questions like the class.
So I will tell you that there are a few questions here about something that I think a lot of people are very worried about, which is the state of our democracy.
Oh, whew. Thought you was going to ask, like, why aren't you running? I was like, please don't ask that question.
You know, it's
No, that question isn't there. That question isn't there.
okay. We won't ask that one.
Okay.
But this is something that
Sure.
I think we're all anxious about. I know that the Eagleton Institute of Politics, we are very concerned about the future of our democracy. You are on the front lines of our democracy right now, and have been for a long time, but in a different position. And you're an organizer. So in some ways, looking to you to say, what do we do? We're looking at this kind of division and extreme division, someone wrote. How can we save our democracy from this?
Look, if I knew the answer to that question, the prescription to that illness, we would all be doing a whole lot better. Let me start by just acknowledging that my offering here is just the opinion of one person. The truth is, I think that if we believe that our democracy is at stake, that require and we value it, it requires us to tell ourselves some very hard truths. And to once we are comfortable, have gotten ourselves comfortable with hard truths, it requires us to do everything imaginable to preserve the thing that we value. What are some of the hard truths that I am referring to? I think one hard truth is that there is the assumption that Georgia is blue. Can we have got to call that thing a whole thing? It is, there were some really exciting candidates at the top of the ticket in elections past who are not at the top of the ticket anymore. And so we can't say that Georgia is blue by the performance that's really based on the dynamism and charisma of Raphael Warnock and Stacey Abrams and John Ossoff when they're not on the ballot. And so I just think that is a hard truth. We have to, I think, tell ourselves the truth that Arizona is not purple. And so there is a lot of work to be done, but we can't commit to doing the work if we don't start with what the truth is. The truth is that people are still hurting from pre-pandemic and then the pandemic and now trying to recover from the pandemic. That is the truth. We can't just say, oh, the economy is doing great. It might be, but it's still hurting for me. And that is just a truth that we have got to say to ourselves. And if we are able to, I think, Deborah, tell ourselves the truth, we can understand then the level of commitment that is required to meet the difficulty of this moment, if democracy is something that we value. If it is, then we know that we can't just start talking to people in September or October. If it is, then we know that we can't just say that we're going to put all of our advertising dollars on MSNBC. If it is, then we will actually meet people not just where they physically are in space and geography, but understanding where their souls are after this country has lost more than 1 million people. Our babies have been killed in school. Our grandparents have been gunned down in grocery stores. There is a pain associated with telling ourselves the truth and then making them commitment required, necessary to fight for, to put up the kind of fight that is required if democracy is the thing that we value. There is no magic answer. I could tell you that, just pass these, we'll in the Senate will pass these bills and we'll work bipartisan and we'll do. There is no magic answer. The answer is everything is required in this moment, but it requires us first to tell the truth. I love this group.
I'm telling you, you need to spend more time in nature.
I totally do.
So, a couple questions that are along these lines. How can we empower young Black women to aspire to political leadership?
Look, as an organizer, I think the answer is you have to ask them what's holding them back. Right? Like, I don't think there's I won't pretend that I know fully what holds Black women, young Black women, back from offering themselves up for political office or public service. I have some sense. I have a sense that a couple of things are in the way, but I think the first step to answering that question is talking to the community with whom you are trying to make assumption. Or solve a problem, because I don't make assumption offers a negative connotation that I'm not suggesting, but you want to be in conversation with young Black women and young Latinas and young AAPI leaders. You want to be in conversation with them, because at the end of the day, even if we get one group to move their numbers and running for office just a little bit, they still need all of us to win. And so, yes, we got to get more young Black women in the pipeline. But Deborah, your data told us in 2022 that women of color were running at record levels. Your data told us that. And so, is getting them to run for office the challenge? Or of helping them win and stay the challenge? And so again, it's like, let's one, tell the truth. Two, ask better questions. Why don't you just stay right there?
Okay, you mentioned your faith. How do you lead and navigate your faith and policy work? What verse or book do you lean on to stay steadfast and do the work in a noble way?
Thank you for the question. I don't know who offered it. There are a couple, and somebody might you might I may surprise you with my response. One is the book of Jeremiah. Uh, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm. And so I try to think about how I approach anything with the clarity of purpose to prosper and not to harm, because I know that those are the plans that my faith articulates for me. And if that is the tool by which and the guidance by which I am sort of living my life and offering my service, that is then what I have to offer to others. And so I start from Jeremiah, and then I go over to a very simple, very probably often overlooked verse in Corinthians: be strong and do the work. Those are the two ways that I think about my service, my work, no matter what I'm doing. It is how I try to stay in a place of, I don't know if nobility is the term, like maybe was noble the word that was in the question. I don't know I don't know that I've ever used that word. But I do think I think about what's right. Um, and my faith truly does ground me in that sense. Plans to prosper and not to harm.
Someone wrote, "Thank you for being an out LGBTQ senator. How has being gay influenced your work?"
It doesn't. I'll be honest. It doesn't. Um, my work is my work. If I was a straight person, I would care about doing the right thing. From my perspective, um, I know and am very clear, and it is so meaningful to me what my presence in these spaces mean for other LGBTQIA young leaders who are finding their way, and I think on their journey they will find that while their identity is incredibly important, their purpose I think is the thing that it will be the thing that people will see and feel.
So,
But my wife is great. I want the camera to know. There are a lot of people in here who know her, and I know they are texting her right now. Girl, did you know Laphonza said she's wonderful. She is a much better organizer than I am. We have different strengths, and our child is, gonna be the next United States Senator.
we will be sending her. First, just for your own feel good about yourself, thank you for choosing to change the direction of your speech. I really needed to hear these key ingredients.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, folks want to hear more about your mom.
Huh.
Are there any stories you can share about your early childhood experiences with your mom that taught you something about women's leadership?
My mother is a very simple woman. Lifed for her. She is one of 11 children. She actually is number 6. They're 5 in front, they're 5 behind. My mother didn't have the luxury or privilege of thinking about leadership. My mother spent her time thinking about what time she had to be at work, how much was the bills this week, and what did she need to do to make sure that we knew that she loved us. That's all. And I'm not, it is in retrospect. In time it is survival. And so I just want to situate my mom for you as I respond to the question. Look, my mother is the epitome of leadership to me. She is a saint, and I think she's gonna get a medal, and everybody's gonna wear her on their necklace. She she's today 70 years old. She lives in Atlanta with my oldest brother. She, for her 70th birthday, one of the things that she said she wanted to do, it was like on her bucket list, was to go to the Potter's house. So I took her to the Potter's house, and it was 125 degrees in August. And so that's the representation of like my commitment to my mother's bucket list. Look, stories about my mom. My mom is a simple private person. She taught, for example, she taught her high school physics class as a sophomore, but she never finished her college degree. She got offered a scholarship to Grambling University, and my grandmother, her mother, wouldn't allow her to take it. She was born in 1953, a year before Brown versus Board was decided, but it would be more than a decade before she actually saw any semblance of equal education. My mother, is a grinder. That is the leadership that she showed to me. That at every moment of obstacle and challenge, similar to Senator Lipman, she met it with the determination and the grit and the clarity of who she is. And was clear that she was going to overcome it no matter what. And so, I appreciate the curiosity. She is the beginning and the end for me. I think if she were in this room, she would melt into a puddle. Because we were talking about her. She's just not that interested in having the spotlight. But she definitely is where the sun shines.
Hope someday my daughters will say that. We're coming to the close of our time.
Sure.
But there are a few people, that this is what they want to know.
It's okay.
What's next? You made a decision not to run.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people in this room are sitting on the edge of their chairs to know what's next and how can they stay connected to you and what you do.
There's the young man that I talked to from the student newspaper who's here. Tell me your name again, young. Adam. Adam is in the room. Here's the headline, Adam. I'm not breaking any news. I don't know what I'm doing next. Honestly, I don't know. I have always been brought to something, and I don't know what I'm being brought to next. And maybe this is it. Maybe my engagement in New Jersey is the opportunity for me to see that there is. That there's a vibrant downtown in New Brunswick, New Jersey. But no, look, I honestly don't know. I don't know. I appreciate the question. I'm not being coy. I'm not that one. If I knew what I was gonna do, I would tell you. My wife is having a little bit of a situation. We are not independently wealthy people, as I've made the point. And so both of us got to go to work. I don't know. No news to share.
Well, I will share that in a very offhand way. The senator said, "Oh, she's looking at all the things that are going on at Eagleton. Maybe I should come here."
Maybe.
So that's on video.
She said it on video.
So we're going to hold out hope that maybe someday we'll get you back
Indeed.
to New Jersey in another capacity. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here for the day. I want to thank you for the time you spent with our students. It was an extraordinary session. We had about 50 students in the drawing room at Eagleton, and you were just so direct, honest, real, authentic. It's the same authentic and real that we saw here tonight. And I just want to thank you for all that you're doing, and we are going to keep watching to see what you do next.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all. I wouldn't be the labor organizer I am if I didn't appreciate my staff who actually helped me get here, though they didn't write what I said. Alicia Henry is traveling with me and has done an amazing job. And as she says, is a movement unto herself. So thank you for doing it. Thank you all. Good night.